Hi there and welcome back to the Potting Shed. I'm Chris Lambert, gardener and a horticultural lecturer here at BCA. In this final episode, I'll be telling you all about the wonders of our humble elder, taking you through how to choose plants at your garden centre and tackling the tricky issue of cats in our borders. This week we're getting to know the Sambucus nigra, not the popular alcoholic shot, but the elder. This scraggly shrub is often found through our woodland edges, field margins and scrubland due to its pioneering nature. It can be found colonising waste ground and even roofs and gutters, where its seeds are dropped by the inevitable discharge of birds who can't get enough of this dark black berries, which gives us its species name of nigra. Now, many people will have walked past this shrub and never noticed it until the start of May, when it froths with sprays of white flowers and their fragrant and citrusy aroma. The flowers' floral aromas are at odds with their foliage, which has been described as smelling slightly of cat's pee. And it's this funky aroma that has often led to it being used to repel flies in kitchens and around stables. Elderwood has been used by kids from yesteryear, as its wood has a large pith that can easily be hollowed out with wire to create tubes that can be turned into whistles, pipes and even pea shooters. Elder may be scrubby in the wild, but it can form into quite majestic and artful shapes. There are a range of different cultivars, some with purple leaves or dissected foliage available, all of which can add interest to your garden as well as provide free pickings to quench your thirst in those heady summer days we're all so looking forward to. In this section, I'm going to take you through everything that I look for when buying a plant in the garden centre. I have 5 examples here to give you a bit of an idea about what it is that I look for when I'm buying a plant. So the first example here would be this really lovely Doronicum. So if we look at this plant, it's got the flowers coming through and it's got a lot of buds. It's really important to buy a plant when it's in bud as opposed sometimes in full flower. If we buy it in full flower, what can happen is its show is over before it's even begun. By buying something which is in bud, I know that it's about to come into the season of growth, and by the time I get it into its pot or its place in my garden, it's ready to roll with its display of fantastic lion-shaped main flowers. So this is a really good example of a plant I would choose. Healthy growth, flowers and lots of buds. Now, another common thing that we'll find in garden centres is things like this plant here. Looks really lovely from the front, healthy, lots of bright, vibrant foliage, plenty of compost and everything. But when I squeeze that plant, I can see that it's all squidgy. Now, what garden centres have a tendency to do, and it's not wrong, but they have a tendency to pot plants on and pot them up into larger pots and then put them straight out on sale. Now what that means is the plant may be healthy, but when you pick that up, you can see that what you're mostly buying is compost as opposed to the actual plant itself. So it's still a good plant, but all of this is just material that is serving no real purpose. So always look for that with your plants. Make sure that just because they look good, neat and clean, it doesn't mean that they are actually ready to go out on sale and you're just kind of buying the markup as opposed to what you're getting. Another great example is this plant here. Now, this is an Achillea. It's a herbaceous perennial. So obviously with herbaceous perennials, they die back and then they come through at this time. Now, its surface doesn't look fantastic. It's got lots of dead leaves. Now, that's normal with some plants. And with all of these dead leaves, they're just simply last year's growth that's died back. We can see that we've got lots of nice foliage coming through here with this plant. And the best thing to do is when you're picking this plant, have a little look at the actual roots. Now, it's absolutely fine in the garden centre. You may look a bit weird, but always have a little look and take them out of their pots. What I'm looking for here, you can see that there's lots of roots and it is quite dry, but when I look really closely at the base, I can see there's lots of white tips, the growing points of these fibrous roots. And I can see that because they're nice and white, they're healthy. So this plant may seem quite root bound, but it's still absolutely fine. And the best thing to do with that plant is when I get home, is stick it in a bucket with a load of water, and that will slowly soak that up and it will reinvigorate that plant. And if you do that before you plant it, it'll be a much happier and a much healthier plant. So that's a good example there of not judging that book by its cover. Another useful thing that you need to keep an eye out on, and in many of our garden centres, unfortunately, there isn't that care for the plants that they have out on their displays. So you have to be looking out and really having a good look at each of these plants. Now this plant, from where you can see it, may look fine, maybe look really interesting and funky like this Ophiopogon. But when I start to kind of pull at it, you can see that the whole plant comes away. Now what can happen in a lot of garden centres, if the plants have been there for quite some time, they get a lot of pest and disease. And this plant may have been kind of poorly potted up, it may have got a bit of fungal attack, may even have had the dreaded vine weevil grubs in the actual compost. So it is really important, if a plant comes away in your hand like this, do not touch. Another example of things that we also find in a garden centre are root-bound plants. So you can see that this plant here, with this fantastic funky fringe going on here, has been clearly left for quite some period of time. Now obviously it's sad, this plant is still a happy and healthy plant, but as you can probably see, when I get this home and I try to take this out, it's stuck solid. So the plant may be healthy, maybe still kind of lots of beautiful foliage, but it's a plant that's maybe been there for quite some time. And as such, you maybe need to kind of have a little look at something which is a bit more of a healthier and younger plant that hasn't been sat there for so long, because again, there could be pest and disease in the soil that that plant is in. And remember, all of that nutrition in that compost has been used up by that plant that's been in there for too long. Now, the only way you're going to get this out is by giving it a severe post-lockdown haircut, severing all those roots. And there's some points where you have to be quite vigorous with this. And the only way you're going to get that out is by giving it quite a few firm thumps. And I've even had to pull away or cut off the pot on this patient. So you can see all of that. That's the leftovers. But we do actually have a really healthy plant that will do really, really well. Always remember, when you're planting these out, give those roots a good tickle before you put them in, because otherwise, if you don't tickle those roots and start to get them to kind of really spread, that plant will just spiral in on itself in the ground. So give it that good chance of life, be really kind of vigorous with your tickling and that will do you really, really well. So it's really important to have a look at the plants that you buy. Plants like this are going to be quite expensive, so you want to make sure you're kind of getting as much as you can out of those plants that you buy. Now remember as well, garden centres are going to be selling plants at their prime. They're going to be selling things that look at their best at this time of year. The best gardens, though, are those that have something for every season. So when you go to a garden centre, don't just buy one of something that's looking at its best right now. Think about your garden, think about the structure, and think about the times that you use it. Buy what's best for your garden. Don't just reach for the thing that looks pretty. Make sure that that plant will do well in your garden. Read the label, read up, maybe do some planning and actually have a little bit of a design for your garden. Otherwise, you'll just plonk that into the garden and it'll be lost. Another useful point as well, don't just buy one. That one in a large garden space is going to be lost. Get a few of them. We always plant in 3s, 5s, 7s, odd numbers, because it always looks so much better. And you can create massive swathes of beautiful plants that really kind of come alive when you've got them all in en masse. So hopefully with those pointers, you should do really, really well when you get out into those garden centres as our weather gets better. Nothing is worse than when spring beckons us to get cracking back in our gardens and we find that the neighbourhood moggies have been using our plot as a latrine through the winter months. As a cat owner myself, I know the obnoxious feeling of stepping on or even kneeling into a border with a fresh gift, and the hours needed to get the stench out of your gloves and clothing. It's even worse when you don't own the cat concerned. Cats are a law unto themselves, and there is little to be done to deter them, but there are a few methods that some people claim to have had success with. I'll admit, they never stopped my cat merrily using mine and the neighbour's garden as a litter tray, but Chuffy was always bloody minded. Now, when digging over your garden, it is best to cover the bare soil with twigs and branches, especially when planting new seedlings, and this acts as a deterrent and to give the plants a chance to grow into the space. A great deal of research has gone into plants that cats supposedly hate, such as strong-smelling lavenders, geraniums, rosemary, and any citrusy smelling plants. Cats are very sensitive to scents, and things like peel from oranges and lemons scattered around may have an effect. You can buy or even make your own garlic spray, which they tend to avoid, but you will have to apply it regularly. You can even buy essence of lion poo, which supposedly top trumps the local cat's territorial marking and stops them from invading your green space. Some companies sell things like ultrasonic sound devices, which have mixed success according to the people I've spoken to, though the RSPB do claim that the evidence shows a 38% reduction in cat visits. Alternatively, live in harmony with your local puss cats by allowing an area as a litter tray, making it easier to spot and clear up, as they are creatures of habit, just like many of us. That's it for this series of The Potting Shed. Thanks ever so much for joining us, and keep sending your questions and pictures to chrislambertgardening@gmail.com. We hope to see you soon. Bye for now.